Hello, YouTube. Good to have you this morning. Took a little walk this morning and to the fields and through the woods, and thought I'd share some of this with you. Appreciate you watching the one from the other day, and hope this is enjoyable to you. We'll see if we can keep this going. I'd like to do all the trails in Lancaster County and see if I can extend it beyond there and get out from our property here. But just to show you a little bit of what the natural history of the area has to offer. So I hope you enjoy this. We're going to start off with a little quiz from the other day, and then move on from there. So y'all have a great day. Now this is our first plant from the other day. This one has 5 leaflets and is found around. Does anybody know what this is? Okay, if you could remember, it was Virginia creeper, Parthenocissus quinquefolia. Leaves of 5, let it thrive was the saying with that one. Now what about this one? And I think after looking at the Virginia creeper, you can get that this was poison ivy. Leaves of 3, definitely let it be. The next one here is one of our trees. This was one in the group that we called Mad. And here are a couple of pictures of it. Can you figure out which one it was? Yes, and it was a red maple, and it's got a leaf that's distinctly different from the sweet gum. And then our last little tree here is one that we saw, and it shows the little flowers on this picture. So if you can remember what it is. And it was the persimmon tree. And you won't always have those flowers to identify it by, so just look at the leaves and see if you can remember from there. But today what we've got is we've got a little bit something different, so let's go ahead and go for a walk. So the first one I want to look at today is one called catbrier. This one is a smilax, and you can see its round leaf, and its species name is rotundifolia, also for round leaf. But smilax is catbrier. It grows in our area pretty commonly and predominantly. It is a vine, and it will scratch you pretty bad, and that's the reason they call it catbrier, because it'll scratch you kind of like a cat. One of the parts of this that are edible, which is kind of interesting, is the little tendrils, the little parts that wrap around the other plants to help it grow, to climb. But it's a catbrier, smilax rotundifolia is its name, so it's about everywhere. This is an elm tree that I saw as I walked along. This elm has on its leaves leaf gall, and the leaf gall is caused by either an aphid or a mite that embeds itself in the leaf, and the leaf grows around it. And here you can see these little bumps where the leaf gall is. It causes some damage, but not damage that would kill the tree. It's not as photosynthetic with these in it, but the leaf gall is definitely there. Oaks also have a lot of leaf galls. Elms, this is an elm tree with a leaf gall. As I walked along, though, I saw this little thing, and if you look in the center of the picture, you can see a little triangle, and that's a little butterfly that floated off. And I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't seen it fly, but this was so camouflaged that I thought it would be a good shot to get the degree of camouflage that these guys have. It looks just like a leaf, which is protection for it from being eaten by something else. Let's walk on out, and we'll walk out the path to the field, and here we have pastures. But in the pastures, we also have some weeds, and this is one of them. This is a thistle, and here's the flower of the thistle. But the thistles grow out there. It's real prickly, so it's not the best thing for hay, but you'll see it providing some nectar for this bee, and the bee also providing a method of spreading some pollen for the plant. So it's what we call a symbiotic relationship, and this is going to be mutualism, where the bee will actually help the plant, and the plant also helps the bee. They trade off, and each one benefits, so that's mutualism. An example of parasitism would be one where something lives off of something else and hurts the other. The leaf gall would actually be a parasite on the elm tree. So that would be an example of parasitism, which is another type of symbiotic relationship. Your third type is one called commensalism, where it lives off of it, but doesn't really harm the thing that it lives off of. And I'll search for some examples of that as time goes on. As I looked around the field, and this is a photo in the woods, but on the edge of the field I have some cedar trees and some pines. This cedar's growing in the middle of the woods and not doing that well. It's really about to die. But here's one growing on the edge of the woods, or edge of the field, and it's doing very, very well. Here you can see the berries of the cedar tree. But cedars and pines do very well in open land. Here's a loblolly pine that's doing fairly well. But what they are is they're some of the first colonizers, and they do need some sunlight to grow to maturity. You'll rarely ever see a cedar or a pine germinate and grow in the middle of the woods unless there's some open place like what we call a light shadow. So here's our first colonizers, the cedar and the pine. This is a loblolly pine, but if you notice also, this pine has some dead area at the top of it. And here's another parasite that's kind of interesting because here we can see some inflated part on that stem, and the inflated part is a fungus that's infected that pine, so it's parasitic on the pine and therefore causing true damage. Here you can see the dead branches up above, but it's kind of neat. So as we look around, we can see the plants and such, but there are also a lot of animals that live here. Last year I actually had a doe and two fawns that lived in this little fenced-in area. The doe had jumped in and had the fawns, and then it couldn't get out of the fence until the fawns got old enough to jump the fence, which they did in about a month and a half. But the goose here is flying over. This is a Canada goose. I also saw just the other day a wild turkey that was walking through here. So these woods are pretty good for a variety of wildlife. You'll see in this picture I've shown, and this is kind of interesting. This is one of our birds that's coming to the area. This is a yellow-bellied sapsucker, and I always think it almost sounds like a Bugs Bunny name, a yellow-bellied sapsucker, but some people call it a counting bird, but it will peck holes in the tree, and the holes are typically going to be in a row like this, and the bird will come by and it'll peck the holes and then come back by, and as the sap's coming out it'll get some of the animals that may have come from the sap.